calling. I'm calling John.
I think we were gonna try and get him in or instead. Ginger's talking to him right now.
Okay. Yeah, his line is busy.
Side of the institution. We're losing quality teachers, we've lost quality leaders because the money is going to the business side, and creating another staff position, another administrative position is not beneficial, and I think that would be a fatal mistake.
Thank you, Mr. Flickner. Next is Sarah Milam.
Hello, my name is Sarah Milam. I am a parent at UME Prep. I'm a former parent board representative, and I served on the board during the term of the superintendent search. I think it's important to note that during the superintendent search, every superintendent, by due diligence, was very carefully vetted to ensure they had both the academic and the other financial and governmental leadership qualities they required to serve in the superintendent role. The CEO role did not exist at that time, and there were no plans for it to exist at that time. The role was a director of development that was temporarily mentoring the new superintendent and would eventually retire. The board has become a boys club, a friends club of people that are there to do what a bully says and silence who a bully says to silence. It's unacceptable. The board is out of compliance and has been out of compliance with the TEA for years. This was known. This is not a secret. The board must come into compliance immediately and should do so by placing Kayla Smith in her appropriate role as superintendent of our schools as she was hired to do. It is vital that we support our structure by making sure that there is a clear path of authority, that our superintendent has a clear reporting to the board for both educational and other matters, and that we do not allow the voice of one bully to control what happens within our school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Milam. Next is Kristen Killingsworth.
Okay, I'm here. I would like to say that I was very disheartened at the letter that was sent out by Dr. Pickle, because it seemed that it completely disregarded the concerns of parents. For one, he gave misinformation about the compensation package of the chancellor. If you look at the details, he is getting compensated with bonuses and with health packages, which is normal, but it is not the 135 or 131 as listed. He also said in that letter he supports the parent representative, Drew Grace, and he supports the superintendent, Kayla Smith. But I think with the topic on hand today, that they want to limit Kayla Smith's job and they want to increase the CEO chancellor position. He does not, or you do not respect the position. And as far as Mr. Gray, it seems like you have tried to, at least in the last meeting, you wanted to consider disciplinary action against him. And then after he requested to be on this ad hoc committee, you completely disregarded that. So it's as if you're disregarding any comment us parents would have. Furthermore, the comments that were posted by the former board member, she talked about having an exemplary educational service, which was developed by the chancellor over the last 7 years but it also made the implication that parents must like this structure because we stayed. We like this school, we like the teachers, We like administration. That's why we stay. And furthermore, that letter mentioned a bankruptcy that never even occurred. So you're using misinformation to the masses in order to promote your own agenda. So our core values at UME are respect, courage, and honesty, and I see that the board has not acted along those lines. You don't respect the concerns of parents or administrators. Nor the chancellor retaliate against those who have the courage to speak those fears, and then you misrepresent information in order to force your agenda. If our students, whom we are really trying hard to educate, act like this, where would this school be? And I think we all need to consider this as we go forward tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Killingsworth. Next is Lisa Burleson. Mrs. Burleson, are you there? Mrs. Burleson, if you're still there, you're on mute. Please hit your little microphone button to unmute. Okay, we can try and circle back to her. Mary Flickner.
Hello. My name is Mary Flickner, and I have been a professor at Dallas Baptist University for 13 years. I have 3 children at UME, and I'm currently a PhD student in leadership with an emphasis in higher education at DBU. When I was able to read the proposed changes to the organizational chart for UME's leadership, I thought through the proposed changes and realized I had the following concerns. The organizational chart of the initial charter reflects the normative organizational charts of education. When we stray from that, we put ourselves in a position of open to risks that are not being considered by our current board. And this proposed change to the organizational chart exposes UME. It is important for leaders to be able to make decisions quickly and wisely in the midst of unforeseen challenges, such as the current COVID-19 situation we find ourselves in. Leaders must have a tremendous amounts of expertise so that they are able to minimize risk and make decisions quickly. What I've noticed about the proposed organizational chart is it moves decision-making out from those who are trained in education and places it instead into the hands of those who are trained in business. Journalist John Merrow recently published a book entitled Addicted to Reform, where he took an honest look at education in America. And what he found is that we typically view the educational K-12 process where teachers are the workers and students are the product. Merrow cautions that this is destroying education in America and destroying our country as a result. He proposes instead that we should view students as the workers and knowledge as the product. Now, if we take Merrow's paradigm for education in the United States, we would see 2 very different educational organizational charts. If students are the product, you would have an organizational chart like the one that is being proposed, where the administrative positions increase ever upward and outward, and more people at a high salary are hired in order to organize the business and churn out more students. Finances must be raised, grants written, campuses opened because students are the product. But if this is indeed the wrong way to go for our school, and I believe that it is, instead we need to view our students as the workers and knowledge is the product. And if that's the case, then what our school needs is not more administrative bloat. What our school needs are trained educational professionals who are able to nurture students so that they can develop as people and produce knowledge. And I think what you'll find is if you have an organizational chart that diminishes the superintendent's role, who is the trained educator, you will grow your school for a time, but in the end, you will lose the quality of education. If you create higher salaried positions at the top, you lose the capacity to hire counselors, to fund certain programs at the school, to retain the best teachers. And as my husband said earlier, until we are able to attract and maintain the very best teachers, and we do not have our most talented teachers leaving because they can make substantially more money per hour teaching in other districts, then we are not prepared to expand our model at the rapid pace that the current chancellor seeks to expand UME at. And I think it's easy to see from the organizational chart changes proposed that the vision of the CEO is quite different than the vision of our superintendent.
Mrs. Flickner, I'm sorry. I have to cut you off and move on. I apologize for interrupting you. Next is Ryan Christopher.
Hi, UME board members. My name is Ryan Christopher. I want to address the changes to the school's organizational structure mentioned in the board's response to TEA. I rarely get involved in things like this, primarily because I like to trust leaders to lead, and I generally do not put myself or my family in a position to be led by those I do not trust. I'm speaking up now because I have deep concerns about the recent actions of this board, and furthermore, have no confidence at all in the chancellor's motives. Over the past years, I've heard countless stories of how the chancellor has mistreated staff and parents. I've heard the stories of him threatening people or twisting the truth to get his way. During the last meeting, I listened as he made petty comments about Mrs. Smith geared towards attacking her reputation. I'm speaking up tonight because the letter from Mr. Pickle and the board was misleading and disingenuous. There were many things in that letter that bothered me, but I'll focus on one. The letter states, and I quote, "There is no plan at the board level to remove Ms. Kayla Smith as superintendent or Mr. Drew Grace from his position as parent representative." The key words are at the board level. It is clear what the board does plan to do is restructure the leadership so that the superintendent reports to the chancellor. I know that the chancellor plans to retire, but the board is setting this up so the chancellor has the power to hire and fire staff from now until his retirement. Again, the stories are clear. The smoke signals do not lie. The chancellor is on a hunt to get his way one last time before he retires. I would ask the board to take clear action to protect Ms. Smith and Mr. Grace in their current positions. This is what the staff and UME families want. That's been made clear in the numerous complaints filed with the board and the TEA, and in the 600 plus people that signed the online petition geared towards removing the CEO position and protecting Ms. Smith. This is a defining moment for this school. I pray that you have the wisdom and strength to do the right thing. I know that many of you are close with the chancellor. That's why you're here. To be clear, I'm thankful for what he's done for the school, but removing Ms. Smith would be detrimental to this school, and the fallout would rest solely in your hands. I pray you reconsider the changes to our org structure that you're proposing and eliminate the CEO position once and for all. Finally, I would like to take you up on your offer and publicly request that I get to interview the two prospective board members that are under consideration. I only have a couple of direct questions for them, and it shouldn't take too much of their time. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I appreciate the time. I appreciate your willingness to consider my comments before taking any further action.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher. Next is Blake Killingsworth.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity to be able to share with the board about some concerns that I have with the proposed changes to the structure that y'all have set into place. In particular, I do not believe that there needs to be a separation between the CEO and superintendent role. In every other school district across the nation, superintendent's role is to be the CEO, overseeing not only academics, but also other areas. And so the CFO, COO, Chief Development Officer, all of those areas that would be in a normal organization structure reports to the superintendent. I do not believe that putting the superintendent on the same level as them and then elevating a CEO position is really the way to go. I think it'll be detrimental to the school. But in looking over the qualifications and the recommendation you have for the CEO position, I have two particular concerns that come up. First, For the superintendent role, you're suggesting that they need to have about 5 years of educational administrative background. But for the CEO role, the individual who should be overseeing the entire school system, you're having them have no educational background. I would urge you that if you do keep the CEO position, that that individual has to have even more educational background than the superintendent. If their job is to make sure that the educational structure of the school is intact and working with TEA and all of the other organizations, then that particular individual needs to be ready and able to have that background and not be coming at it as a naive experience. The second is I am concerned that the CEO has. In particular, if you're looking through their job description, they're in charge of telling the board their particular role. They're also in charge of filling the board seats, at least that's the way it's written. Not the board, not a committee, subcommittee inside the board, not board members recommending, but the CEO does that. And then there's one line in there that's particularly concerning, is that the CEO is in charge of all succession planning within the school, including their own position. I cannot think of any other organizational structure where the CEO in a public setting like this, or in an area that has a board, is allowed to choose who is going to be their own successor. So I would urge you not to go forward with these planned changes. I would urge you please vote against these particular changes to the job descriptions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Killingsworth. Next is Brance Barker.
All right, hello, dear UME Prep Board. As you are hopefully aware, I submitted an email response to Dr. Pickle and the board on Saturday regarding the letter the board sent out to families and the misinformation contained within it. It is concerning to me that the board has been very dismissive regarding the UME community's expressed concerns regarding financial accountability and the standalone CEO role. Regarding the proposal that the UME board sent out to us today, here are 3 of my concerns. One is lots of overhead. Given the concern expressed by the UME Prep community, it seems that the board wants to not only continue on with the CEO position, but still add a development director as well, and now an administrative services position. Again, unless you are one of the large charter operators, this seems unnecessary. Yes, I agree that it is difficult for one person to do everything, and yes, another position may still be needed that reports to the superintendent, but your proposal indicates 3 positions. UME Prep was successful as a school since the beginning, prior to this initially being separated out in 2017. When Mr. Spurlock was in this combined role, he had multiple people supporting him and complementing his areas of strength. Ms. Smith should be afforded the same opportunity now that she is in the superintendent CEO role. She has the team to do it. Number 2, academic officer. The board and chancellor say they support the chancellor, support the superintendent and CEO of our school. And yet in the 2 job descriptions shared with us today, the superintendent job description says to work with the CEO on various areas. And in the CEO job description, it says that they will work with the academic officer. For our current superintendent, who has been handling multiple areas of the school for the last 2 years, this reference to her as the academic officer does not now show your support and expressed in your recent letter, and she deserves better. Number 3, teachers and current families. Given all of the funding for these additional proposed roles, I would be curious how the teachers and current families will fare with all of this. I would be interested in understanding this better, and I really appreciated Mary Flickner's remarks earlier. So given that more factual information has been brought to light for the whole board over the last few days, it is my hope that you will carefully discern how to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Next is Kristen Wright.
Hi, my name is Kristen Wright, and I've been an 8th grade writing teacher at UME for 2 years. I have concerns about the proposed organization chart and the overall focus for the future of UME. I noticed on the proposed organization chart that there are 2 new positions to be added, one of which is titled New School Development. This is concerning to me because if I understand the title of the position correctly, it implies that in UME's future, there will be need for a dedicated individual to handle only expansion. I understand that expansion is very important in business, but expansion is not the goal of education. As a matter of fact, I believe that many of the goals of expansion are actually detrimental to education direction. More schools and more locations with more students does not necessarily equal better schools. The opening of the new building this year is a great example. We were unprepared in so many ways to handle the new procedures and the extra students, and in so many ways we've been playing catch up all year. I am perplexed about the addition of a new elementary campus in Arlington. Where will all the sixth graders go? Will there be room at the junior high and high school Dallas campus to house these students? Is there even room for the current Duncanville students? If there are plans to make room for all of these additional students at the Dallas campus, does that mean moving from part-time teachers to full-time, adding more teachers, or making the school day longer? Constant change equals difficulties in the classroom for teachers and students, and education suffers. Our students are not products or commodities. They are not simply dollar signs filling seats. They deserve a school that's focused on their best interests and not on expanding. When I see a dedicated position for new school development, I also have to ask how much that individual will be paid. Since the position is even with the superintendent in the org chart, I have to assume that this individual will have a significant salary. If UME was focused on making our school the best it could be for its current students and not scoping out new properties for future schools, would we even need a CEO? I believe that our superintendent, Kayla Smith, would be enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Next is Kendra Cordero.
I'm Kendra Cordero, 5-year high school teacher at UME Prep and a UME parent. Thanks for allowing comment tonight. I speak on behalf of the teachers tonight. I'm concerned about the correspondence that has gone out from the board recently. When I was hired on at the school in 2015, there was one leader at the school who served as both superintendent and CEO. That person reported to the board. It was in 2017 that the position was split into 2 positions. At that time, the 2 positions were CEO and superintendent. It was later that the CEO position was renamed as chancellor. It was our impression at the time that this new organizational structure was temporary until we opened a secondary campus. The new organizational structure was never approved at the TEA level. That is the first problem. But the main problem here is that the current organizational structure has bred dysfunction. I am not the only faculty member who has a problem with the organizational structure emailed out today, where our superintendent reports to a separate CEO. That is dysfunctional for an educational community, and our faculty is extremely dissatisfied by it. UME is not thriving because of the organizational structure. We are thriving despite the structure. We are a successful school because of a strong board, wonderful superintendent and principals, high quality, caring teachers, staff, and most of all, because of the wonderful scholars and families who form our community. The communication from the board is falsely stating that 2 separate head positions has always been our organizational structure, and that it even bailed us out of bankruptcy in the past. Those statements are false. It is not okay for the board communications to spread false information, and it's concerning that it continues to happen. If you are going to decide to keep an organizational structure, don't let the reason be because of false information. Please, board, check your facts. UME needs 1 leader reporting to the board. That leader is the current superintendent/CEO, Kayla Smith. We do not need a separate chancellor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Cordero. Next is Susie Brommer.
Hello, everybody. My name is Susie Brommer, and I am a parent, a teacher, and an administrator at UME Prep. I'm calling tonight because I'm concerned about the direction the board is heading in cementing a number of positions above and at the level of the superintendent that are neither necessary nor desired by many of us who call UME family. Just for comparison's sake, I looked at the organizational charts for some of the districts surrounding us. Here's what I found. Dallas ISD, the superintendent reports directly to the board. All other officers report to the superintendent. DeSoto ISD, the superintendent reports directly to the board. All other officers report to the superintendent. Cedar Hill ISD, the superintendent reports directly to the board. All other officers report to the superintendent. Grand Prairie ISD, superintendent reports directly to the board. All other officers report to the superintendent. Arlington ISD, superintendent reports directly to the board. All other officers report to the superintendent. Mansfield ISD, superintendent reports directly to the board. All other officers report to the superintendent. I think the point has been made. I'm asking the board to continue abiding by the 2015 organizational chart in which the superintendent reports directly to the board and all other officers report to the superintendent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Bromers. We're going to circle back real quick. Lisa Burleson, are you there now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Sorry, I found the mute button. Okay, I had a lot of things that have already been covered this evening, but I guess I just have to start with wow to the board. Can you hear us now? It just seems to be the same resounding comments that we have confidence in our superintendent. We do not feel as though we need a CEO or chancellor position. We feel as though the one we have now has very much bullied our staff and our administrators, and we don't appreciate it. And we ask our children to adhere to a higher standard at UME. We see that in our teachers. Now we expect that from our board and from our chancellors. And once again, don't think the position is needed. I hope you guys are hearing that loud and clear. I do not think it was an accident or an oversight that you knew you were out of compliance. I feel as though you probably knew you were. And then the only other thing I want to say at this point is I want to reiterate, I do not feel as though Dr. Pickle represents what we want as a president of our board. I would encourage him to consider this and to step down. And any others that feel as though they may remotely have conflict of interest that holds them under Mr. Spurlock right now, you should consider doing the same as well. And I think we've just had enough. When there's the bully in the room, we need to all acknowledge that. And I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's going to do it for the public comments. Mr. Chairman, you may proceed.
I just want to thank parents and everybody for participating and sharing their thoughts.
Well, thank you for all the public comment here. Obviously, it was well thought out, well presented by all of you. As I said before, I would like for you to write this down, the comments that you made tonight, and to forward them to me at umeprepchairman@gmail.com. If you lose that email address, Ginger has it, of course. The reason for tonight's meeting was to discuss the board's response to the TEA letter of March 5th. The initial deadline was March the 19th. We filed for an extension and it was accepted. As I said at the last meeting, that there would be an ad hoc committee that was formed to address issues. This consisted of Todd Wright, Manuel Laura, and myself. Could we cut down on all the background noise, please? The job of the ad hoc committee is to recommend a response to TEA's letter and public comment at the March 17th board meeting, and to read and consider all the public comments that were made. At this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Pastor Laura to summarize.
Yes, thank you. The summary of the comments are as follows. Comments came from administrators, teachers, parents, students, former employees, and former board members. Most concerns came from the elementary school population and expressed a desire to continue the culture that has been established. We do not anticipate that any of the changes we are recommending tonight will change the culture of the school. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Todd Wright to report on the recommendations for responding to the TEA letter.
Thank you, Pastor Laura. The ad hoc committee's recommendations were sent out with the meeting agenda and included a proposed organizational chart, a CEO job description, a superintendent job description, and narrative. It is the committee's recommendation that the school will have one head administrator who will serve as the chief executive officer of the organization. He or she is responsible for the implementation of board policy and the organization's overall operation. The official title for the head administrator is to be determined by the board of directors, and it's the ad hoc committee's recommendation that the title be CEO. The ad hoc committee recommends that the CEO report directly to the board of directors. The board will delegate responsibility for school management, including but not limited to education, finance and accounting, development, both campus and facility and endowment fund, marketing and external affairs, human resources, facilities and operations, legal, to the CEO. He or she will have the authority to carry out the responsibilities in accordance with the direction and policies established by the board. The ad hoc committee recommends that the board take action to adopt the organizational chart and the CEO job description. The ad hoc committee also recommends that the superintendent report directly to the chief executive officer. The superintendent is attached to a single geographic region. As the school expands into additional regions, it is anticipated that there will be similar positions for each region. The purpose of the superintendent is to oversee the education functions of the school and to interact with students, teachers, and parents on a daily basis, delivering high-quality university method education in a public charter school setting in accordance with state law and in accordance with the directives and policies established by the board and the CEO. The ad hoc committee recommends the board take action to amend the superintendent's job description and assign it by action of the board as allowed under the superintendent's contract provision 2.1.1. So at this time, I'd like to ask if my fellow ad hoc committee members have any additional comments.
Yes, the intention was always to have Kayla be superintendent, not CEO. Kayla served as interim superintendent and acquired a superintendent certificate in order to become superintendent, not CEO. She was never considered for CEO.
Okay, any further discussion? Dr. Pickle, I guess we'll turn it back over to you.
Yes, at this point, it's an opportunity for public comment if anyone has signed up for this.
Everybody has spoken, so you may proceed.
Everyone has spoken?
Yes, sir.
So this is Jim Brodnick. I have one question. I just think that we've addressed two of the positions, but we have not talked about the other two. And I think that should be talked about as well.
Which two do you refer to, Jim?
The new development and administrative services.
Those are positions to be filled as the school expands and requires them. They were put in there as the whole place in the organizational chart so that we could fill those later as the need arises. We don't see filling those positions in the foreseeable future, but if the school expands, then those positions are likely to be needed.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other comment? The board will take everything under consideration. We appreciate all the input tonight. Thank the ad hoc committee for the work and the recommendations. I anticipate calling another board meeting within the next 72 hours to take action on the recommendations we have received tonight.
I'd like to say something on that. I would propose that we grant that some more time. I think that 72 hours is a very fast turnaround time. We want to make sure we have all the board members present and the time to be able to process this information to make the best decision.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
This is Todd. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Does that mean that we're not going to make that decision now, or what does that mean?
I'll take it under consideration, Drew. But at this point, if you would call me personally later, like tomorrow, and talk to me on one-to-one, I'll be glad to talk to you about it.
I wanted to raise it before we adjourned because it seemed to be a rush decision.
It's not a rush decision. No one's rushing anything here.
When is the deadline extended to, sir?
Oh, goodness. I had that a moment ago.
Is Joe Hopper still there?
No, he's gone. Wait just a second.
Joe is here. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, Joe, do you remember when the deadline was extended to?
Well, we just told the agency we needed a few weeks because of the COVID crisis. We actually fulfilled the deadline response. The deadline was to provide TA a corrective action plan by the 19th, which we did. And we told them we needed a few weeks to be able to actually act because of all the other pending emergency items. So there's not a hard deadline now. There's just, we've given ourselves a soft goal of having this wrapped up.
So with that in mind, I think it would be advantageous to wait, at least a week to be able to come back together.
Okay. You've expressed your opinion. All right. I'll take it under consideration.
Are you going to take anything else we've said under consideration today?
Who is this?
I'm sorry, this is Dr. Blake Killingsworth, is one of the parents concerned. I'm sorry I'm speaking out of turn. It just seems like our public comments weren't listened to at all. I understand you have a lot to deal with. I do appreciate that. It's very frustrating for a number of our parents.
Yeah, the problem is, to respond to each one of your concerns. And that's the fact that as I understand from Joe can correct me, is that we're actually not supposed to respond to you by law.
The earlier ones we sent an email. I do apologize. The earlier ones,
You're welcome to come to my house and look at each one of these letters that were sent and the notes that I've made in the margin. I mean, and the thing is the board each member has read through all these comments. Just not the ad hoc.
So Dr. Pickle, this is Joe Hoffer. I'm sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute it. Yeah, you're on the agenda, so it's appropriate that you responded to the comment, but public comments are over. My recommendation is that the board does carefully consider public comments and parental concerns as it continues future deliberations. And no action's been taken. There is time now for the board to deliberate carefully and to consider these things. And the public, of course, maintains the right to voice their concern, to send in additional written comments that the board should consider carefully. But that you proceed now, and you really can't, the law doesn't allow you to answer questions individually. I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah, I would I would like to make a motion that we postpone meeting back together at least for one additional week. I don't know if that was heard. I'd like to make a motion that we postpone resuming this discussion and taking action for at least 1 week.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
This is Jim. I'll second that.
The motion is to postpone a response to TEA for 1 week.
No, the motion is that we would not meet back together to take action on what has been discussed tonight for at least 1 week.
I think that's just what I said, wasn't it?
No, you said to respond to TEA.
I'm sorry?
You said to respond to TEA. I'm saying...
Well, the meeting would be about responding to TEA, and that we do it in a week.
Just wanted to make it clear.
Can we have a roll call, please? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Say nay.
Nay.
This is Todd, nay.
Okay.
Nay.
I didn't, this is Gary, so I'm okay with delaying it a week.
Ginger, do we have a total here?
3 and 3, what was your vote? Can you hear me? John?
Yes.
That's 3 and 3. 3 and 3, what was your vote?
That I call it when I want the meeting to be. As soon as we can get prepared.
I didn't hear Pastor Andrade.
Pastor Andrade, are you a yay or a nay on that?
I'm sorry. I was mute. Yes, my vote is nay.
Okay. So the majority says we can do it within 72 hours if we want. As soon as we've had an opportunity to review the comments, then we'll post the next meeting. At this time, I need a motion to adjourn, unless there's other business.
I'll make the motion.
I second it.
All right. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That being said, the meeting is officially adjourned here. Thank you all for your time and effort. Bye.
I'm still on the line.
Anybody else still here?
I'm still here.
I'm here. I'm staying.
Yes, I'm still here as well. This is Kristen.
Let's stay till they pull the plug. What do we need to do now? Did anyone recommend, did anybody send in an email or a letter that this was a good idea? We wanted this?
I doubt it.
No, I didn't.
They keep saying they're taking it under consideration, but who's been for it?
No one.
They're trying to
You're just saying that.
Hey, guys.
they're trying to push this through quickly before the TEA has time to investigate. It's very important that we file TEA quickly before they can get the
Can we file like we want to have this board resolved and the new started?
You could put,
I do want to just encourage y'all real quick. I want to thank y'all for all being here. We do need to make sure that we follow those grievances with TEA, make sure that they are aware of it. And I'm not going to lose hope until TEA weighs in. If for some reason the board continues to just do what they plan to do, and that's on them. I am hopeful because of that first TEA letter, they spotlighted the fact that y'all stood up to the board meeting, you spoke, and now we have petitions. We have all y'all representing 170 at the last board meeting, all y'all speaking tonight. They take that into consideration. So I'm going to be trusting in that.
Hey, so, do you know if the petition has been submitted to TEA?
Say it again.
Has the petition been submitted to TEA for their?
I don't know. I was not in charge of that. I'm not sure how to do that, but whoever was part of that, I would encourage them to.
Any of us can send a link to it. I mean, it's on the public internet.
Okay.
also know
I think the more
that it is very easy to complete a public request for anything you'd like to see.
public information and you can also request emails that go board president.
No one.
Okay, that's a better answer, Lisa. Thank you.
This is my question. When is it appropriate in this whole process to get the media involved? Because all they've got to report on right now is good, and it seems like the community comes out to the media, give them else to report.
I've been doing that for a while. At
this point, we followed all of their told them everything they want us to do and listen to us.
I would be in support at this point.
We have actually made comments into the media and have
which media outlet?
Yeah, I don't know. You guys are the art, and it's hard. I think it's simple, but.
So we're not going to start on the team. This is how letters one time, or is it 20 or 20 in the bar with separate letters? But we probably want to make sure our messaging is consistent across all the parents, so they're not getting mixed messages, and that's something the board could point to and say the parents don't know what they're talking about.
Yes. I feel like whoever can from petition. We just need to get these things through because
things be read or checked. So anything I do, I'm sending to the school and I'm sending it out of courtesy, but
it's just to make sure that your channels before they take in consideration your complaint. So they're just looking to see that you're doing that.
Yep.
Last thing, I've set up a Facebook group of parents at UME who are concerned about this. So I'll be inviting all of you on Facebook. So let's coordinate if everyone's in agreement. So we can send links to one another and make sure our messaging is consistent with the individual complaints. This is Chris Stewart talking. Sorry, I didn't.
So I can try and get things to you. And you.
It's fine. I'll do the reason that you call this really
I know we have to personal and I know we'll consider what's in the so.
Or do they not know how to hang up?
This was always one.
And this will not be different.
Sarah, I'm sorry I didn't hear you. Would you please repeat that? I'm sure it's important.
I just said our parents have consistently been supportive and put together, and we have also consistently been organized and motivated, and we will not be different.
And Sarah, to add to that, this is not just a parent thing, it's faculty too. I think the fact that faculty and administration are involved as well should send a